Got it. So you said that you're using microservices, right?
Yeah.
Um, so can you walk me through the one of the latest projects and your work around it?
Yeah, sure. So currently we are handling actually six microservices, which is based on the domain-driven services. So each microservice is catering to a specific source of functionality. Like for example, currently we are handling four domain services, which consist of one business, one microservice for businesses, one microservices for users, one microservices for entitlement to users and businesses, and one services for accounts. Now we also use these two microservices for authentication and authorization part. And it will give you a walkthrough how the request would look like in our microservices architecture. So suppose we have a different backend as well as the front end or UI class which fires the request to us. Now we are using Spring Cloud Gateway as our API gateway to work as an API gateway, which works as a single entry point for all the requests. There we have applied there we have applied the authorization of all the consumers by the use of JWT. And also we have one microservices which caters to the authentication, whether this particular user or businesses is authorized to have to use the services of our domain services. There we are also using the JWT, but in for this format we are using JWE instead of the JW full-fledged JWT, and for router we are using JWS. Now JWS has a total time of 10 seconds. So whenever you wanted to file any of the APIs of any of the domain-driven services, you have to go through the API gateway, and that particular token will be consumed at the router level. Now there is another token which is being prepared by the auth services, now the second authorization services. Now this has a validity of 10 minutes. Now there we are checking whether there basically we are passing those tokens to all the domain-driven services in order for the domain services to respond. So there for that purpose we are using pre-handler at the Artifactory level, and now this Artifactory has been used by all the domain-driven services so that it caters to all the requests which is coming from the router. So and so yeah, we have also used. Uh, so previously, actually, we are using service discovery. We have used Eureka, but it has some issues which related to Spring 3.2. So we have removed it and
Mhm.
basically uses the plain old API gateway. But before that plain old API gateway, there's another management which is called APIM management. Now it is being changed to the APIG. Now this contains this basically takes care of the basic authentication like the other token and all those things.
Okay, so
Yeah.
moving away from authentication, what is the work that your services are doing in terms of interaction with databases or interaction with any other bigger system?
Yeah, so Tapan, actually, we have basically architected these microservices in order to reduce the mainframe cost. Now we have shifted our focus to in the databases we are using two databases. First is DB2, IBM DB2 we are using, and then another we have newly introduced like Oracle 19C we are using. So now both of
So
these.
basically, is this a project where you're migrating from mainframe to Java?
For the DB purposes, you can say that. Although the code has been there before, so the code was legacy code. You can say that it is being written in Java 5 and Java 7. So although the core services is new, before that there was no core services. So it's a simple API in which uses, and then eventually the calls goes to that. So most of the actually what really happens is the mainframe DB call is really a heavyweight call, and that's why we wanted to reduce those costs. So basically, you can say it's a partial migration category kind of a project.
Mhm. Your service was probably hitting somebody in mainframe, and then mainframe was going and making an IMSDB2 call, getting the response from IMSDB2 and giving it back to you. That was probably what was happening before, and then you guys changed it, is it?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right. So what are the design parts that you use to change it?
So design part as it means, IBM mainframe basically uses something called ZOS. So it's
Hmm.
basically a wrapper.
ZOS, yes.
Yeah, so it's basically a wrapper which gives you a capability to connect the Java native code to the ZOS code, and ZOS
Right.
call in turn call the mainframe functions, and then mainframe function in turn get the data. Now, basically, we have removed all the mainframe calls from the most of the APIs, and then basically we are catering to the DB2 and as well as the Oracle. So Oracle we have introduced 3 to 4 months back, but before that it is all DB2. So there is one job basically which the team has already ran to load
Hmm.
the data from to other system to the DB2 system if it's not there. So basically, we are directly hitting to the DB2 system instead of going by the which you have already mentioned that is correct.
Okay, got it. So you have direct connections for IMSDB2 from your services, Java services.
Yeah, from the repository. Yeah,
Got it. So instead of using, let's say, MySQL, you're using IMSDB2 now.
correct.
Cool. So what are the pain points that you have seen?
Mhm.
Um, did you get a fair exposure to the mainframe systems? As in, did you look at the COBOL code? Did you look at the
No,
JCLs?
no, right.
Okay. Um, so what is
Although
the big? Mhm.
although the main pain point which I understood from the migration point is every so there's no what you will say there's no once we get the DCLS data, so there's no way to uh, capture it without having all the classes at once. So you have to get like for each and every parameters you have to have a classes instead of the parameters as such. So which is basically it takes a lot of time in marshalling and all those things.
Got it. Cool. How did you find out that your system
Mhm.
is faster than mainframe? So mainframe generally works at, I don't remember the speeds now, but those are like the highest speeds that any systems can offer, right? So mainframe is the fastest system serving the in terms of number of work it can do. Java is
In
not so
terms of
fast. Yeah,
number of work it can
as
do.
in terms of processing power that can be served. So mainframe is the fastest system. So how did it turn out that your code was faster? I mean, what were the parameters on which you were considering the fastness?
So as and when if I wanted to compare these two calls, so currently we are using something called seconds uh, uh, to to basically give us a particular request, and then we can trace it out how much time it takes basically for the DB2 call and for the external call message. So by that manner, but however, what we have gone through the POCs and all those things. So what eventually we understood is that although mainframe calls are good at handling a huge amount of data, but if you were to say that it can handle a large amount of data, that is also true. But I think uh, the segment at which it should return the data, I think that it's not pretty good. Quick. Hello, Tapan.
Uh, Akash, I'm losing you.
Tapan, I'm not able to hear you. Is there something? Let me check this thing. I think my internet's good. Let me check. Yeah, I think mine is good. I can see that it still is coming. Let me also check.
I'm sitting in office, so I doubt it is my internet issue, but I'll just check it.
Just a minute. I think the issue is from my side. Uh,
Are you connected to VPN?
no, no, no. I'm connecting to. Let me. I'm not sure. Let me just check. Just give me a moment.
Akash, just drop off and join again. Yeah.
I'm not. Just a minute. Uh, should I? It's open.
Uh, yes, yeah, Akash. I think now
Okay,
it's
okay.
smooth.
No, no. I think the issue is from my side. Eventually, the internet drops. So I reconnected and then
Okay.
that's. Sorry about it. Sorry.
All right, got it. Cool. Um, so I understood the work that you did. So, um, cool. So let's get. Did you also have exposure to IMS DC?
Data
Is it
centers.
only to IMS DB2? No, DC is so DB2 is like MySQL. DC is the original mainframe storage units.
Okay.
There are segments, and you store the data in segments, and then you have to access the segments. So did you work with segments of data?
No.
All right, got it. Cool. So what we'll do is we'll move on to the Java part.
Okay.
Can you start sharing your screen?
Yeah, sure. Okay. Are you able to see?
Not yet, still loading. Okay, so you can probably close out a few systems, and I'll just share a code shell link. So I think it'll be a bit faster. You can close the notepad. That's okay. We don't need notepad.
Okay.
And you can also probably IntelliJ is on, so maybe that might be consuming a bit of power. You can turn it off.
So I can start here. Is that fine?
So you can just quit IntelliJ. So I'll be sharing a code shell link. So in the code shell, you can go ahead and code it.
Yeah, that's better. Okay. So this is the just a minute.
Right. All right. So how comfortable are you with um, basics of Java?
Yeah. Uh,
Cool.
I'm not sure what happened to my system. Uh, I'm not able to. Not good. Yeah. Not good.
Okay. So I'm just writing a hi over there. Yes, you can see it. Cool.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is, um, so let's start with, um, can you tell me how do we use heap and stack in Java?
Use stack. So yeah, stack is a class. You can create an instance of it. For heap, we can have a min max heap.
Okay, so I'm talking about heap and stack in terms of
Okay, memory. So,
yeah, the memory and those
uh-huh,
things. Yeah.
okay. What was the question again, Tapan?
So what is your understanding? So let's say if I say a statement that we have heap in Java, we have stack in Java, and we use both of them for processing the system and processing um uh, the methods, the work that JVM has to do. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you visualize it? What is your understanding of it?
Yeah, sure. So, heap is basically a larger space than a stack. Now, a stack is something which is a short-lived. Let's take an example of when we are running the thread. So, every thread have its own stack. Now, coming to the heap. So, whenever we are creating any object, it goes into the heap space, and the stack is much faster as and when accessed, whereas heap is not. Because of the bulkiness it has.
So let's say you have these three ways
Okay.
of initializing a string.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
you're going to have three if conditions.
Okay.
uh, what of these will be true, what of them would be false, and also help me visualize when you're writing or when you're creating this, where is the object getting created.
Yeah, sure. So I will first go ahead uh, with the Trojan first, and then I will explain that one.
Hmm.
Okay. So S1 and S2 that. Uh, so I believe this is the string which is are in execution, like in order of execution. So basically, this will be executed, or you want this to be executed first. That's no case, right? So it's a simple Java statement written in a Java language. Yeah. So this will be true. S3 S2 and this one is three. Okay, so coming to the explanation part. So now coming to the first if statement. So these are two the string letters, and so there's an area called a string constant two. So under that, whenever this has been created, so basically it has acquired some space, let's say memory space, let's say x y is something like that. And then eventually when it tries to create another one, so it says like, okay, I have already figured out that it is already a literal which is being created. So again it points to the same space. Now coming to those two things, so S3 is basically create a two object. So first is heap, and the second one is in the literal. So since these has already been taken care, and the memory space is XYP. So when it goes to the literal, I think the memory space is also XYP. So this will return true. Now this will violate the conclusion false because mm, no, I think just a so if it is already there, then I think it should be also be true. So true. Then S1 equals to S3. The one is already there. So I think this one also returned true. Yeah, yeah, okay. Should be there. Tapan, you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So um, so we have try catch in Java, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so have you heard the statement that don't use too many try catches? It is going to slow down your code. It is an expensive operation.
Uh, like uh, like I think if yeah essentially yeah. You can say that.
Right? So what is it that makes a try catch expensive?
Okay. Uh, so
So expensive
I
here
think
essentially.
yeah
Go ahead.
yeah share something.
No, so essentially what I'm looking for in terms of expensive is
Mm-hmm.
um, let's say in terms of CPU processing power,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the resources, I think it's more expensive. The reason being that's where the try with uh, uh, block is there. So let's take an example of the traditional try catch block. So ideally, what we need to do is like let's say if you're opening a file, so basically once the operation has been done, you have to close the file. Now, let's say if the try catch block is not there and the method is not showing the exception, then with basically what we are doing is like we are making sure that all the operation is executed line by line, and the call stack is also being cleared as and when it goes down the wire. So, in the terms of the resources, I think it is expensive because if we go with a traditional way, but if we are using like try with, which basically help us to close the resources in the try statement itself, then I don't. I think then it's not that expensive. And where the expense cost comes from, I think majorly it's a call stack which is going to be expensive because it has to hold out the execution point in the try, and then eventually something ever happens to that post, it has to come to the cache block.
All right. So these are some scenarios that I'm looking at. So you have a divide function which is you pass a numerator on top and denominator at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay, so 10 divided by 4, you'll get some value, right? So we're not worried about the value,
Mhm.
but we'll get some value. It will be 2.5 or whatever, right? So there is no error,
Mhm.
right? So this one has an execution time of T1.
Okay.
Um, then this is a scenario where you get an exception. So because 10 divided by 0 will give a numeric exception, right? So anyways, I'm just catching it in the generic exception pool, and I'm not going to print anything up in terms of the exception or the stack trace or anything.
Mhm.
Just want to print found an exception. That's it.
Okay.
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 Uh, so this entire thing should take T2, and then you have T3, which is again going to perform the same action as the first operation. However, this time you have no error. Okay.
Okay.
So can you compare the times for me, T1, T2, T3? If you come down, you can see T3 as well. Just scroll a bit down.
Okay. So.
Right. So you have T1, T2, T3 here, right?
Mhm.
So just tell me in terms of difference, as in let's say, just for the sake of argument, I'm saying that T1 is let's say taking 100 millisecond or 1 second, whatever you want to take.
Okay.
So will T2 take, let's say, will it be significantly higher? Let's say maybe 10 seconds,
Mhm.
or will it only be a significant or a slightly higher value or a slightly lower value, right? So just tell me the comparison with a logic of why you think so. You got the question, Akash?
Yeah, definitely. I got the question. So basically,
Or,
we wanted to understand like what is the magnitude at which these three time execution will work out.
right.
Okay. So let okay. So can I get a 2 3 minute to understand
Yeah, sure.
yes.
Take your time. If you have any doubts with what my methods are doing, I can explain it. But I think it's pretty much simple. I'm just
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
it's pretty
divide
much
it 10
simple.
by
Yeah,
10.
yeah. I understood the question wide and close, so there's no
All
issue.
right,
Yeah.
got it.
So I think T1 definitely be first. So T1 would be first.
Just refresh the page once.
So I think T1. What is it? So T1 is first. Then T3. So T3. Uh, so okay, this one is mhm. Um, so I think so. This is what I thought. So if there's definitely there's no try catch block, so definitely it will perform better. And
Mhm.
if there's a
So
try, yeah,
that part I understand because
yeah, yeah,
there is an
definitely,
error in T2, so that will take more time.
yeah.
Why is it that T3 is more expensive than T1? And what is making T2 more expensive than T3? And in terms of T1, T2, T3, let's say if you're putting T1 as 100 millisecond,
Hmm.
will T3 be, let's say, 1 second, or will it be 110 millisecond? And while comparing T3 with T2, comparing T2 with either T3, T1, will it be like 1 second, or will it also be like 110 millisecond or something like that? So what I'm trying to understand is
Hmm.
which one is super expensive, which one is a slightly more expensive.
Okay. So let's say if this will be executed, let's say I'm taking the p2 dot seconds. So it is being executed in seconds. So and then I believe the second one would be executed in I think 1.1 seconds. And then this eventually calls the exceptions and they basically handling it. So and uh, although it's not being too much expensive because when we are dividing it by zero, so half of the execution basically complete and the whole call is not completed because we've already figured out the zero is already in the denominator. That's how the function is being maintained. So if I were to take this case particularly, and I think this would even execute it much faster with the T1 since just because it does catches the exception. So in terms of the execution part, I think this is much faster uh, uh, because we have not fully executed the part and then eventually we are catching. But it's not much faster than T1, but that basically faster than the T0. So I think it should be equal to 1 and then eventually this was something like that. That's what I thought.
Okay. So why do you think T2 would be faster than T1? T3?
Just because of the same option, that because since we are throwing the exception, so we are not really executing the method as such. Although the execution happens at the end of the call stack, but in this case, I think the call stack is not yet completed, and then eventually we seek out the flight condition that the denominator is 0. So then we are basically catching in the exception and then throwing.
Got it. Understood. So I'm at line number 49. If you can come down. Right. So let's say you have a class student,
Okay.
right? And it's a Pojo. So you have name and email.
Yeah.
Then you have a class. So I'm not looking at the syntax. Okay, the
That's
name and email and those things you can ignore for now. So you have a IMPL class, whatever it is, and there you have a method called getStudent method. Right? And in this getStudent method, there are a few things that are happening over here. Just check them out once.
So student change me.
Right? And the methods you can find niche, as in a bit below.
Okay, sorry. Change me. Change me student.
Let me just make it a bit more easy for you to look at. Let me remove the empty spaces. Okay, so these are the methods.
Okay. Okay, so
So for the Pojo, you can assume there are getter setters, or you can assume there to be
yeah.
logbok, right? So let's not worry about those things.
Sure. So what we are looking out is the output, like what should be I should be
Right.
getting.
Correct. So will it be name will be Tapan, or will it be changed, or anything else, whatever you can think of, right?
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, so change me. Changed. Changed. Change me. And then change me lines requirement. This is a void method. I think it is,
Right.
because we are getting this.
Okay. So you can.
Yeah. So.
No, it won't matter. Let's have it as void only, and maybe over there we're just going to remove it.
Okay, so this is change the value.
Okay, so let's assume every time when the method is called, you are sending tapan and tapan@gmail.com. Okay. So let me clarify that bit as well.
Okay. That's a question response. Pass value. This is change the value. Return the response changed. Creating a new object. Some changed. Changed. Printing student. So I think first will be first, change.
Got it. That's okay. You can make typos. That's okay. Not looking for typos.
And then changed we return so eventually what doing is making sure that student we haven't make use of the we changing something out of third one is not what I want to keep that signing changed. Um, I think yeah, this is what it has looked at.
Okay. Can you explain me your case number 2? What happened there?
So eventually, we are not making any use of the past variable, but just returning the one which we have created. So basically, it is not being referenced anywhere, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll return that whatever the student D1 is.
So
Changed
the
by
method
just
change me return also returns an object. If it returns a student
oh,
object.
oh, yeah, just yeah. Okay. Student. Yeah, that's okay, but I think it is not. It is not. Although it is returning the response, but the student one is not being referenced in any way. This particular X thing, it's not being referenced anyway.
Okay. And how about line number so how about the third method? Change me new.
So in this case, this particular thing has been basically this has been created and this is being given the value to this. I think it's been reference. So if a reference by value based on that we will get this response.
Okay. So in Java there's no concept of pointers, right?
Yeah.
So when we're actually let's look at any of the methods, right? Let's look at line number 67.
Mm-hmm.
We're sending change me new, that is the method, and we're sending an object. So how does the how does the method?
Tapan?
Are you not able to hear me?
No, no, no. Can you come again?
Okay. So let's look at line number 67. We have change me new method over there,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the method, we're sending an object, student to object is being sent. And then, the method will receive it and do the processing and everything. So how does that work in Java? In Java, we don't have a concept of pointers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So can you help me visualize it with the help of heap? What happens with the object? Let's say you've created the object student 2. So
Mm-hmm.
now that object is sitting in the heap. So
Yeah.
how is it, like, how is the method going to receive the object, and how is it going to start making the changes?
Okay, sure. So, so generally when we are creating any new object, so it is going to sit lie, basically it is going to lie in the heap area, and then eventually then we are assigning this particular parameters to it. You able to hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then basically it's since it is a class, so it is being encapsulated and all instances really happen. And then basically we are assigning the name and email. Now coming to this part, which is x equals to y. So basically when we are creating this particular method, so this student object is being created in the heap itself also, with the parameterized uh, uh,
Mm-hmm.
values. And then eventually we are passing these object, and then we are saying okay, get the value of this. Okay, I think. Okay. So these are two different objects, and basically we have assigned the reference to it instead of the values. Mm, yeah, that's right. I think then it
Got it.
should return
Understand.
Kafka because definitely this is
Mm,
not
mm,
something which that's not by value, it's by a reference, and then eventually reference for that it returns. It should have a
got it.
pointer and then eventually the memory space. Correct, I'm wrong in that case.
Right. So let's move on to, have you, do you have any experience with garbage collection, as in
Uh,
tweaking the garbage collection mechanism?
Tweaking the garbage stress mechanism. No, I never opened that part.
Got it? Um, are you aware of what are daemon threads?
Yeah, daemon thread I think is a low priority threads, which happens to be called whenever there's any program executed. You can also set out the properties for the daemon thread, like the name and then no, not the name, the priorities wise you can set. So daemon thread is basically being done whenever we are calling the main thread. In the background, there's a daemon thread which basically runs and then which does all the tasks. Uh, that's what I know about the daemon thread.
Got it? Um, all right. So moving on to, you said that you have exposure to distributed caching, right?
Yeah.
Um, right. So do you also have experience with messaging queues, let's
Uh,
say AMQ or Kafka?
Kafka. So yeah, we do use Kafka, but it is as a of Kafka as a service we are using. So
Okay.
yeah, we do Kafka use Kafka in one of our services.
All right. Are you aware of the internal workings, and how does Kafka work? Like, not too much in depth, but like overall, do you have a understanding of it?
Yeah, pretty basic understanding I do have. Tapan.
All right. So let's say you have um, uh, so in Kafka, essentially we have topics and then we have consumer groups, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is,
Tapan, you.
yeah. So
Oh, sorry.
if you can come down to line number 104,
Just, yeah. Now
right?
it's,
So yeah. let me create more space for you. Just give me 1 second. Right now you can drag a bit more down.
Thank you.
Right, so this is for Kafka. So you have partitions. You have partition 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have some service which is feeding the data to your partitions,
Okay.
right? So that one service will feed the data to all the 4 partitions at the same time. I mean, the data can go anywhere,
Yeah.
right? And now you have a login group, a
Okay.
consumer group essentially,
Okay.
right, which wants to consume from those partitions.
Okay.
Right now, this group has 2 instances deployed, as in this particular. So since you're familiar with Kubernetes, so there are
Yeah.
2 pods of this same service
Definitely.
deployed,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So essentially, we're trying to balance the load here. So how will the balancing look like in terms of what partitions, or how many number of partitions will be connected to every instance?
How many number of partition will be connected to every instance?
Right. I'll also go ahead.
Um, so there will be a random number. I'm not sure whether there should be any specific number which should be assigned to a particular partition, particular consumer group. Um, since all the partition is going to act on a leader and follower methodology.
Mm-hmm.
So the data will be there in all the partition. So I think we can define those in the consumer properties maybe, but so the relevance to it is to consume the data based on some part of the topics. So I think the distribution wise, if there's any property, I don't recall, but I think the distribution should be random since the partition contains execute the same data based on the address.
That's okay. So the distribution will be random, but let's say um, how many partitions will be connected to how many instances? Is there a logic that we use to that Kafka uses as a default option, right? I'm not talking about tweaking the Kafka at the moment, just as a
Okay.
default Kafka. How many partitions will be feeding the data in this scenario? Like, is there okay? Let me put a few more details here.
Okay.
All right. So let's say there is a lag option,
Mhm.
and the lag here is 1,000, lag here is 500, lag here is 9,000, lag here is 0.
Okay.
Okay. So
Mhm.
now your services are coming up. This is the current lag. Okay. Now your service is coming up. Instance 1 and instance 2 both are coming up. So you have just deployed your service and you're
Mhm.
bringing up your system.
Mhm.
So now they will go ahead and register themselves with Kafka, and they will be assigned, like, at the end, partition has to send data to the instances, right?
Yeah, correct.
So will all the partitions be assigned one instance, or will one instance be assigned with one partition? How does it work? Is it a one to many relation? Is it a many to many relation? Is it a one to many, many to one, one to many, many to many?
So generally, it is like for the particular consumer group, there's a one-to-one mapping for the with the partition and the consumer group. That's why we have our application sets for that purpose. But coming to the instances of the particular consumer group, uh, I think
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay. So one of the problems that we have with Kafka is, and one of the benefits of Kafka is, it is an async communication, right?
Yeah,
So we don't essentially care. Um, we just feed the data to Kafka and we forget about it. We
yeah,
rely on Kafka and the other service to deal with it, right?
yeah.
But is there a way to ensure
Mhm.
that a data of one particular user, let's say
Mhm.
you are sending some user data,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you want to ensure that one user's data should always go to uh, a single instance. It can be any instance. So let's say you have hundreds of instances running,
Mm-hmm.
but for that particular user, the data should be routed to one of those 100 instances only. Like it should not happen like, instance one got his first request
Mm-hmm.
and instance two got his second request.
Okay.
If it is a user, you can assume him to be like, if you want it to be a name, you can assume it to be a name. If you want it to be a numeric user, let's say the user has an ID. Let's say the
Mm-hmm.
user number is 44.
Okay.
So the user number 44 data
Mm-hmm.
should always reach instance one.
Okay.
Okay, did you understand the question?
So basically, the question is like how we can ensure that a particular set of data is going to a particular set of consumers.
Correct. A single consumer all the time.
A single consumer. So consumer group or consumers, like the single instance.
Consumer group is a blanket, right? So consumer group will have multiple
Consumers.
instances,
Yeah,
multiple
consumers.
services. So I'm
Yeah.
essentially talking about a service here.
Okay, service. Okay. 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 So essentially, we wanted to understand like whether there's a possibility like we can route all the packets to a particular consumer site of of of,
Mm-hmm.
of the partition.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the topic remains the same, right? We are not changing the
Yes,
topics.
the topic remains the same. The data essentially remains the same. It's
Okay.
just that for that particular user,
Mm-hmm.
everything should go in an order.
Okay.
Okay, so the problem statement, I'll just refine the problem statement a bit more for you. Um, you are sending an async communication, right?
Okay.
What happens in async is, let's say if the communication reaches partition 4, it will be served at that point itself because there is no lag,
Correct.
right? So you send the data, served. However, there might be some data which was received in partition 1 30 minutes before, but
Mm-hmm.
since it has a lag, it is not able to serve it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the
Okay.
data which was processed for this particular user earlier,
Mm-hmm.
like the producer has
Mm-hmm.
produced the data 30 minutes before, but the
Okay.
consumer has not yet processed it because there is a lag with one of the partitions.
Okay.
On the other hand, the producer produced one data right now, and since there is no lag with another partition, that got consumed right then and there. So we don't want this to happen. We are okay with async communication at
Mm-hmm.
a system level.
Mm-hmm.
However, at a user level, the
Mm-hmm.
communication should be in an order, right? So we need to ensure that um, so in a partition, Kafka will always follow the order, right? So whatever messages came
Correct.
first will be served first,
Yeah.
right? So we want to ensure that every time the same partition gets the message for that particular user.
So essentially, we wanted to ensure that the message ordering is up to the point, which is regard to the consumer.
Message ordering for that user is up to the point. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
Did you understand the problem statement and the question now?
yeah. Yeah. Understood.
Got it.
Okay. Um, I think in that case, we can go ahead with the offset management of the particular uh, uh, offset management.
So offset for Kafka is taken care of Zookeeper, or if you're using the new Kafka, they have
Yeah.
inbuilt services that will take care of the offset, right?
Yeah. That. Uh, apart from that, there's something called acknowledgement bit we can use in the consumer configuration side,
Okay.
where mm, because we don't want it to disturb, since there's a 30-minute lag, don't want it to consume the data coming from the second partition, although it is
Mm-hmm.
much faster from that side, right? So I think acknowledgement, it can be used, but there are some other properties which I don't just a minute. Let me think about it.
That's okay. Just tell me what you want to do. I'm not looking for the property name. Like, the
Okay.
property values are okay for me.
Okay. Then, in that case, what we really wanted is like, let's say, till this particular point, we have read the data, and then after that, there should be essentially we have two points where we are setting out the offset first point, and then basically then we are saying, okay, once we have set it down the first offset, and then until this offset I have already read, then eventually there should be another acknowledgement point. Now this acknowledgement will take care that whatever the data I have received, now that particular data should also have some sort of uh, some set of sequencing to it, so that we can understand, okay, now this partition is basically coming after this, we should be basically should be having another messages with this particular sequence. So this particular sequence will take care of the acknowledgement bit. Once we have the acknowledgement bit over there, then we can start consuming it. Otherwise, we will let it rest for that particular thing, for that particular consumer bit. So essentially, we wanted to consume the messages in order, and then acknowledgement bit and the sequencing part will help us to achieve based from the producer side.
Got it. Understood. All right, Akash. So I think we're out of time. We're already at 1 hour mark. So I am done from my side, Akash. Uh, any questions you have for me? Anything that you want to ask me?
So Tapan, is this particular hiring for any particular project, or is it like just like generic hiring? I'm not.
So the hiring is not not directly related to a project,
Okay.
but right, so you can stop sharing the screen, and you can even close the code share and come back to the normal video chat.
Yeah.
So the hiring is generally done at a TechMojo level, so it's not
Okay.
specific to project as such. But at the moment, only one of the project is hiring.
Okay.
That would be the product that we have is a gambling platform. So I think that is the uh, a major product that is hiring at the moment.
Okay. Got it.
But so this does not mean you'll essentially be joining that.
Understood.
At the end, TechMojo hires, so they have the liberty to decide on the project.